Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. In 202 BC, Xiang Yu was defeated in the Battle of Gaixia and led his remaining troops in an attempt to break through enemy lines. He fled all the way to Wujiang. At that moment, the Wujiang pavilion chief advised him to cross the river and return to Jiangdong to regroup and rise again. However, Xiang Yu lamented, "I have no face to see the elders of Jiangdong." He refused to escape, instead gifting his warhorse to the pavilion chief as a final farewell. Xiang Yu then chose to fight on foot, exerting every last ounce of his strength. He battled fiercely against Han forces, slaying hundreds of enemies in a desperate struggle. Covered in blood, he sustained over 10 wounds. Just then, Han cavalry arrived in pursuit. Lu Matong recognized Xiang Yu and shouted to his comrade Wang Yi, "This is Xiang Yu, the king of Western Chu." Facing his former subordinates, Xiang Yu forced a bitter smile and said, "Are you not an old acquaintance of mine?" He then learned that Liu Bang had offered a bounty of 1,000 gold coins for his head, along with a noble title of Marquis of 10,000 households, as a reward. Laughing boldly, he declared, "If that is the case, then let me fulfill your wishes." With that, he drew his sword and took his own life. After Xiang Yu fell, Wang Yi hastily severed his head. The remaining cavalrymen scrambled for his corpse, causing chaos and leading to dozens of casualties. In the end, Langzhong cavalry Yang Shi, cavalry Sima, Lu Matong, Langzhong, Lu Sheng, and Yang Wu each seized a part of Xiang Yu's body, and all were rewarded with noble titles by Liu Bang. Later, Liu Bang put on a pretense of grief, dramatically pounding his chest, sighing toward the heavens, and even squeezing out a few tears. He then buried Xiang Yu in Guqing with the formalities befitting a Duke of Lu. Yet, all of this was merely the posture of a victor. The true hero had already fallen at Wujiang, his soul returning to the heavens. Despite the passage of time, the burial site of Xiang Yu, the hegemon of Western Chu, remains a mystery. Legends about Xiang Yu's tomb have emerged in various places. But one ancient tomb in Tai'an, Shandong, is considered the most likely location. In 2009, a group of tomb robbers set their sights on this tomb of Xiang Yu. Under the cover of night, they infiltrated the site and used explosives to breach the burial chamber. The deafening explosion startled the residents of a nearby village. The village chief, hearing the commotion, immediately led the local villagers to the scene. As they approached the tomb, they saw several shadowy figures fleeing into the woods. The air was thick with the pungent smell of saltpeter, and the ground was littered with scattered soil and waterlogged wooden fragments from the explosion. The next day, the village chief promptly reported the incident to law enforcement and relevant authorities. Archaeologists quickly intervened and decided to conduct an emergency excavation. Upon surveying the site, archaeologists discovered that the tomb was of an astonishing scale. The mound of sealed earth reached a height of 8.5 meters. The diagonal length of the tomb's base measured 63 meters, covering a total area of approximately 1,088 square meters. Even more astonishing, the tomb featured 15 tiers of steps and was shaped like the Chinese character, Jia, exuding an extraordinary aura of grandeur. By comparison, the Qinggong No. 1 tomb, unearthed in Shaanxi, had only 3 tiers of steps. Could this mean that the owner of this tomb was even more esteemed than Duke Jing of Qin? However, one peculiar phenomenon puzzled experts. The Qinggong No. 1 tomb contained over 100 sacrificial victims. Whereas this ancient tomb showed no signs of human sacrifices. Could this suggest that the tomb's occupant was Xiang Yu? Historical records state that Liu Bang gave Xiang Yu a grand burial. Yet, as Xiang Yu was his greatest rival, Liu Bang was unlikely to arrange human sacrifices for him. This discovery seems to align with the historical accounts. Additionally, during the tomb's exploration, archaeologists discovered 2 ancient tomb raider tunnels aside from the newly dug hole left by modern grave robbers. One of these tunnels was located on the southern side of the tomb, where an ancient axe was found beside the entrance. After expert analysis, this tool was identified as a crane beak hoe from the Western Han period, suggesting that as early as the Han dynasty, someone had attempted to plunder this tomb. The other tunnel was in the tomb's southwestern corner, where archaeologists astonishingly found a discarded plastic water bottle and cigarette butts. The bottle cap displayed a date from 2005, indicating that before the recent grave robbers arrived, unidentified individuals had already entered multiple times. Clearly, the legend of Xiang Yu's tomb has captivated people throughout history, enticing some to risk their lives in search of its secrets. On the day the tomb was unsealed, villagers, young and old, gathered around despite the freezing cold, eager to witness the remains of the Hegemon of Western Chu with their own eyes. The archaeologists carefully opened the coffin, which consisted of 3 layers. Each layer had to be meticulously studied and recorded before being removed. When the first layer was lifted, nothing unusual was found. However, when the second layer was taken off, the dark wooden coffin of the tomb's owner finally emerged. Intricately carved patterns adorned its surface, exuding a mysterious and eerie aura. Just then, a sudden gasp rang out from the crowd. "Look! What is that?" All eyes followed the pointed finger, landing on the coffin lid, where a massive red footprint was imprinted. Experts quickly measured the footprint and found it to be 26 centimeters long, approximately the size of a modern European 42, US size 9, shoe, clearly belonging to a large-built man. Even more unsettling, the footprint was precisely positioned over the tomb owner's heart, sparking endless speculation. How was this footprint left behind? Did it conceal an unknown secret? Archaeologists employed various cutting-edge technologies to analyze the red footprint, yet no definitive explanation could be found. Some speculated that it was left by tomb raiders. However, given that the coffin was encased in 3 layers, each with a height too small for a person to stand inside, this theory was ruled out. Others suggested that the footprint might have been accidentally left by a lacquer worker when the coffin was being painted. But in ancient times, where social hierarchies were rigidly enforced, matters of life and death were treated with utmost reverence, especially for an individual of such high status. If someone had accidentally stepped on the coffin, they would have surely covered it up with black lacquer. Thus, this theory was also dismissed. Some believed that the red footprint belonged to Liu Bang himself, symbolizing his ultimate victory over Xiang Yu. According to this theory, Liu Bang intentionally stepped on the coffin lid during the burial, leaving his mark. While this idea seems plausible, it remains too speculative, especially since the tomb owner's identity has yet to be definitively confirmed. Concluding that Liu Bang was responsible would be premature. To uncover the truth, the experts temporarily set aside their research on the red footprint and prepared to investigate the tomb owner's coffin. However, when they lifted the coffin lid, they were met with anger and disappointment. All the burial artifacts were gone, leaving behind only water and silt. Near the tunnel dug by tomb raiders, a few scattered grayish-white bones were found, indicating that the tomb owner's remains had been disturbed. As the archaeologists carefully drained the water from the coffin, they found nothing of value. Just as the experts were beginning to feel disheartened, a major breakthrough occurred on the eastern, western, and southern sides of the tomb chamber. After meticulous excavation, the team discovered 1 large pit and 2 smaller ones, where 6 chariots were neatly arranged. Even more astonishing was the unearthing of several artifacts within the pits, including bells, scepters, and daggers, items commonly associated with warfare. Unfortunately, the northern section of the tomb had been destroyed by the construction of a small pond, erasing any traces of a potential chariot burial pit. This strongly suggested that the tomb owner had a significant military background during their lifetime. But who exactly was this tomb owner? Though the coffin had been drained, the burial goods had long disappeared, leaving only scattered remains. It became evident that the tomb raiders had violently pulled the tomb owner out to seize valuable artifacts, resulting in a tragic and gruesome scene. The archaeologists were deeply troubled, believing that this protective excavation might yield nothing of importance. However, they refused to give up. Then, just as they were clearing out the silt, something remarkable happened. Within the dark sludge, they uncovered what appeared to be a strip of bamboo, partially exposed. The excavation team became even more cautious, carefully removing the surrounding sediment bit by bit. Moments later, one of the team members excitedly declared, "This is a bamboo slip. It's ancient, we must handle it with extreme care." Encouraged by this discovery, the team worked with heightened focus and ultimately unearthed over 700 bamboo slips. This finding suggested that the mystery of the tomb owner's identity was close to being solved. For archaeologists, written records hold far greater research value than pottery or other relics. However, upon close examination, the experts were puzzled. Not a single character was visible on the slips. To preserve them for further analysis, the excavation team carefully wrapped the bamboo slips and surrounding soil in special materials before transporting them to the archaeological laboratory. Meanwhile, under the watchful eyes of onlookers, the tomb owner's coffin was hoisted from the burial pit by a crane, preparing it for further study. Not long after, as the coffin of this extraordinary figure was lifted to the surface, scholars at the site turned their attention back to the red footprint. Under the glare of spotlights, they conducted a detailed examination using microscopes and other equipment, only to make yet another bizarre discovery. Beneath the red footprint, a handprint was concealed. Its lines and ridges were strikingly clear, matching the size of an adult male's hand. This was clearly not an accidental mark but something deliberately left behind. A footprint symbolizes trampling someone beneath one's feet, a sign of absolute dominance. But what could a handprint signify? The experts were baffled. Could this mean that the tomb owner had offended someone so deeply that even at their burial, an imprint was intentionally left as an act of resentment? Yet, this explanation did not seem entirely convincing. Just as everyone was struggling to make sense of it all, a groundbreaking message arrived from the archaeological laboratory, bringing an electrifying new development to the case. It turned out that the seemingly vanished ancient characters had merely been temporarily concealed. Through meticulous research, archaeologists finally managed to reveal them, bit by bit. Upon deciphering the text, experts discovered that the true owner of this ancient tomb was not Xiang Yu, but Dao Hua, the Grand Marshal of the state of Chu. Dao Hua, also known as Zhao Hua, was a high-ranking official during the reign of King Huai of Chu, serving alongside the renowned poet Chu Yuan. According to historical records, tensions arose between King Huai and Dao Hua due to the manipulations of the strategist Zhang Yi, leading to Dao Hua's disappearance from public records for a long time. However, his devotion to his country never wavered. Instead of withdrawing from political affairs, he chose to serve the state of Yu, which at the time was suffering from internal strife and declining national strength. With his exceptional talent and strategic acumen, Dao Hua led the Chu army to a decisive victory over Yu, bringing the territory under Chu's rule and achieving remarkable military success. The burial items found in the tomb, including chariots, command bells, and scepters, corresponded to the mysterious handprint and footprint on the coffin. Furthermore, the bamboo slips unearthed within the tomb provided crucial insights into these mysteries. The inscriptions primarily detailed Dao Hua's identity and military achievements, but they also contained rich descriptions of Chu's customs and traditions, including special sacrificial rituals, a fascination with mysticism, and the symbolic significance of footprints. According to historians specializing in Chu culture, footprints and handprints held profound symbolic meanings in ancient Chu society, representing kinship and legacy. When Dao Hua passed away, his family was overwhelmed with grief. Following the burial customs of Chu state, they personally laid him to rest. Once the coffin was placed in the tomb chamber, a final funerary ritual was performed. As per tradition, the eldest son or the designated heir would, under the guidance of a shaman, dip their hands and feet in red pigment and imprint them on the coffin lid as a final farewell. But why was the handprint precisely positioned over Dao Hua's heart? In ancient beliefs, the heart was regarded as the most vital part of the human body, symbolizing life and spirit. Leaving an imprint in that spot signified a deep emotional connection, as well as the inheritance of the deceased's legacy and aspirations. With this, the identity of the tomb owner had been largely confirmed, and the red footprint finally had a logical explanation. However, one mystery remained: why did people mistake this tomb for the mausoleum of Xiang Yu, the Hegemon king of Western Chu? And if this was not his tomb, then where was the real burial site of Xiang Yu? Throughout history, various theories have emerged regarding the final resting place of Xiang Yu. One account suggests that after Xiang Yu took his own life at Wu River, Liu Bang ordered his head to be sent back to Dongping, Tai'an, in Shandong for burial, while his body was divided into two parts. One part was buried in the Yuji Mausoleum in Hexian, Anhui. The other part was laid to rest in Cifu, Shandong. However, based on archaeological research, Xiang Yu's head was indeed buried in Dongping, Shandong, while the so-called Hegemon king's tomb in Cifu may have only been a symbolic burial, an empty tomb for his garments and crown. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone, and see you in the next time.